All right. Now I have things where I want them. Good morning.
Morning.
So LinkedIn, it's my favorite. I don't work for them, first of all, which is a great thing because when you work for a company, you can't always say the good, bad, or the ugly, but I do get to beta test a lot of new features for them. I'm currently beta testing the LinkedIn audio feature, which you might not even know exists. I can tell you about it a little bit later. So first off, let's just go to the chat for a second. Why don't you put in the chat, put a 1 if you don't even know if you know what your LinkedIn password is. Put a 2 if you have a profile and you're there sometimes, but you don't really know what to do. And put a 3 if you're an expert and should come work with me. So again, that's a 1 if you don't even have a profile or don't know your password. A 2 if you're in between, you're there, but you want to learn how to use it more effectively. And a 3 if you're an expert and should come work with me. All right. Mostly twos. That's pretty common. A couple ones. All right, you're gonna wanna log in and get working after today, I think. So the thing with LinkedIn is it used to be this place that was only for getting jobs, right? You'd put the equivalent of your resume up there and hope to get jobs and leave it at that. It has turned into something else completely. In fact, I think of it as the not so boring, although it may seem like that on the outside, social media. Underneath, it is a 24/7 networking, prospecting, brand building, business building, and yes, career platform. So depending on your goals, you can do it there. And your prospects are there, your clients are there, your referral partners are there. It's kind of like if you're not there, you don't exist in the business world. So you want to be there. Now, one of the things that LinkedIn is best at is branding you, the person, the individual, as the business owner and as a person in general. Yes, there are company pages, but the real power is just like in person, is that one-to-one, getting to know people and them getting to know you. In fact, I always like, if you're ever wondering, if you take nothing away from today but this, if you're ever wondering, should I say this thing on LinkedIn? Should I do this thing? Imagine we were all together in person. Would you say, and we just met, would you say that thing to me or would you do that thing? So if you're not sure, right? So we'll talk about some of those things actually a little bit later. We all know that no matter what the business is, if people know you, the person, they're going to be more likely to want to do business with you. They have to know, like, and trust you. You've all heard that, I'm sure. Now, I like to tell this asparagus story. By the way, I love asparagus. I know it's one of those things you either love it or hate it, right? Like cilantro. Mm-hmm. Apparently, asparagus, when you plant it, it takes something like 3 or 4 years to grow to the point where you will continually harvest it. So I think of behavior on LinkedIn and actually behavior with networking too. Not that it will take 3 to 4 years, but that it's something that takes time to build up. You're not going to do a single post on LinkedIn and suddenly have 100 new customers or clients. Oh, in the chat, out of curiosity. So how many of you already have a business? Put a Y. And if you're thinking of starting a business, or maybe you have a side hustle, put an N. So why if you already have a business, and if you're not yet? A nice mix. Sue likes asparagus too. Excellent. We'll share recipes. Looks like half and half. Excellent. All right, so I tell the asparagus story so that you don't get discouraged. It's not, yes, it's social media, but it's not Instagram, it's not Facebook, it's its own thing. And I find a lot of people actually like it better because it is business focused and they don't have to balance, do I talk about this thing or do I not? In a way that you might say on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere else. Speaking of which, how do you know you're being successful when you're there? What might you see going on to know you're being successful, you're doing the right things? So the first thing is, and you could, if you have ideas, you could put them in the chat. But the first thing I think is, are people looking at your profile that you want to be looking at your profile? Are people accepting your connection invites when you send them? Are people asking you to connect that you want? There's a lot of people, you might not know who they are. Are people engaging with your content if you share content? And just a little tip on that. A lot of people are apprehensive about engaging with content because they don't know who's going to see it. And they ask me a lot, so if I comment on your post, will my boss see it? Will my competitors see it? So there's a little bit of, I'm not sure. Some people are very comfortable with it, but other people have a little bit more fear around using LinkedIn because, like we talked about, it's their career. So something we should get, I'm sure we have some people who rank themselves 3, they're experts, they understand this, but I want to make sure everybody understands the connection levels because this is something that's so powerful about LinkedIn. So first connection means one of you sent the connection invite and the other person accepted. So for instance, Sue and I are first connections. We met at some point, one of us sent an invite, the other person connected. And that means that typically, depending on settings, we can see each other's connections. I'll get back to that later. A second connection is somebody that is connected to my first connection, but not to me. But LinkedIn shows me the path. So for instance, if Sue is connected to Rodney, but I am not, Rodney is my second connection. And then third connection is like a second cousin twice removed. LinkedIn doesn't show you the path. So the real power are those second connections. Those are people that you might want to know or that might want to know you. And there's someone in between. So we'll talk about that later, but I just wanted to make sure. Does everybody understand that? Any questions on connection levels? And when you're on LinkedIn, if you see somebody and they're commenting or they did a post, next to their name, it'll put a little first, second, third. So you know what connection level they are to you. Because sometimes I actually just connected with somebody last week who I've known for years, and we thought we were connected because we've had so many conversations, both on LinkedIn and off, but we weren't. So we fixed that. All right, fact or fiction in the chat. Do you think that you need to spend hours on LinkedIn to make an impact? Why for if you think you need to spend hours, and for if you think you don't? And maybe the people who voted that they were a number 3 expert, don't give away the answer. All right, do you need to spend hours? You figured me out. No, you don't. I like to say you can make an impact in 10 minutes a day. And honestly, in some cases, it can be less than 10 minutes a day, but that just sounded good, honestly. What happens is as you have success, you're going to want to spend more time, but doesn't mean you're going to be spending that more time every day. Maybe you're doing it once a week, once a quarter, once a month, depending on what you're doing there. It's not necessarily going to be every day. All right, so LinkedIn has a lot of stuff, and I think that's why people get confused. It's what is that, right? What are all those things that are going on? It's a complicated platform. It's changing constantly, and sometimes, just so you know you're not crazy, sometimes you're part of a test group and they don't tell you. So they might move something. You might notice the search moved over to the right for no particular reason. You might be in a test group where they're testing where they want to put the search box. So you're not crazy. It's not you, it's them. And a question in the chat, is the green circle a first connection? No, the green circle, do I have that in this talk? I don't, so I'll explain it now. When you see somebody's photo, If you see a filled in, I call it the cupcake and the donut. It could be filled in like a cupcake. And that means that somebody is currently on the platform and active, which means if you send them a message, they're more likely to see it and write back immediately. A donut means they're, let me see if I remember, logged in on mobile, but not necessarily, it doesn't say whether they're currently active. And like, for instance, I never log out unless I get logged out. So if somebody has a green circle, then you know that if you want to reach out to them, LinkedIn might be a great way to do it versus texting or emailing or some other method. Good question. All right, back to the slide. So to me, there are the building blocks of LinkedIn, and the foundation, the thing that's the most important is your personal profile, because that's where, so when Henry gave my name to Ronnie, she probably went and looked me up on LinkedIn. Or if somebody gives your name to somebody, that's where they're going to check you out. Or if you comment on a post, so somebody wants to see who you are, they're going to go to your profile. Now, I also list a business page. So LinkedIn, in a similar way to Facebook, you have your personal profile, that's you, the individual, and then you can have a business page. If you have a business, or if you're going to have a business, definitely have a business page, but more of your time, your precious time, is going to be spent as you, the person. But I believe in, I call it owning all the real estate that LinkedIn gives you. So you definitely want a business page, because I don't know how many of you, anybody, have you gone to someone's profile and it says a business name, you know, they have ABC business, and it doesn't have their logo and it doesn't go anywhere. It's just like a gray box. To me, that doesn't feel like it's a real business. So having that business page lends legitimacy. It just says, this is a real thing. Yes, I am a business owner. So built on that foundation, what comes next? The networking and prospecting and engaging with people, the conversations. So if we were in person, those in-person conversations. And then there's content. And by content, I don't just mean posts. So think about your profile is content. Yes, posts you do are content. Comments you make on other people's posts, that's content. So a direct message that you send somebody through LinkedIn, everything is content, and that sits on top of all the other things. But the most important part is to have that strong profile and business page. So of the people there were a couple people that rated themselves a 1. If you don't have a profile, now is the time to build that profile. And speaking of profiles, so on your profile, underneath your photo is your headline. They call it a headline. It's the text under your name and your photo. Do you think it should be your job title? Put it in the chat. Why for yes and for no? Danielle says no, it should not be your job title. Carol says no, it should not be your job title. You people are figuring me out. I have to make harder questions. Joanne says not sure. Okay. Excellent. It should be something about what you're about. So I like to say it's your 220 character elevator pitch. It's your first introduction that you make to somebody about who you are. And I have a client that's in the insurance business, and if they just put, first of all, they tend to use internal terms. They might call themselves a producer at XYZ company. Well, first of all, people outside of insurance industry, producer, what does that mean? Do you make movies? So there are 2 different formats. Think about, in fact, actually, if we had time, I'd put you in breakouts and have you practice introducing yourselves to each other. But think about what you say when you first meet somebody. And that can be a great basis for your headline. If the kind of business you have is important to say the name of that business for some reason, you can include that as well. So for instance, mine could be, I work with business owners and individuals to help them unleash the power of LinkedIn. So that says, first of all, it says who I work with, business owners and individuals, and it says what I do for them. Or maybe I have other things I want to say, so I might break it up into little phrases. So it can be a sentence, or it can be separate phrases. I change mine all the time, just because I have to experiment, of course. So think about not just what you do, who you do it for, and the benefit they get from working with you. And I will tell you, just sort of be careful of this. If what you do is business coaching of any type, there are far too many people who you may have seen them, they may have tried to connect with you, especially if you have a new business, where their headline says something like, I help new business owners generate 100 times the revenue in 2 days. So coaches get a bad rap because there are people like that who are trying to get, they took some course and suddenly they're going to teach you how to quadruple your revenue in a day. So if you are a coach, I would encourage you to do something more authentic than that and word it differently, like you would in person. If you met in person, you wouldn't say that to me. You wouldn't think about what you would say in person. And I see a question that someone says that in their profession, there are policies about self-disclosure and they're discouraged from doing a lot of posting. So I know, for instance, there are industries that are very regulated. I have friends that are financial planners, and one told me it took weeks to practically get permission to say that he worked at the organization. And there are compliance issues and things like that. It can be tricky, but what you have to know is you have to follow the rules for your industry if there are actual rules, right? Like in finance. If it's just that your company wants to control what you say, it's your profile. They don't own you, but yes, you work for them. So the more you can share about who you are, the better it will be. But if you're limited by compliance or things like that, then you have to play by those rules, and it can be frustrating, I know. So has anybody here, did you take a look at your headlines? Anybody come up with a headline you'd like to share that's a change from what you had? You can put it in the chat if you'd like. Put in your new headline. Lynn, I like that. Lynn says, it should be about what you do, not ninja rockstar visionary. Yeah. Although I will say, when I started my business 12 years ago, I was uncomfortable using the word expert. I said, well, other people can call me an expert. I can't call myself an expert. I've gotten more comfortable owning my expertise. And I think I'm generalizing here. I think sometimes women have a harder time saying, I'm really good at what I do. So I've decided to get over that and say, yeah, I am an expert. But someone else can call me a ninja rockstar visionary. I'm not going to put that in my headline. All right. Here's an example of the top of somebody's profile. Now, in the old days, remember newspapers? They would be folded, and there used to be saying above the fold. So the most important thing would be above the fold. This part of your profile, the top part, is kind of like being above the fold. It's what will make people decide if they want to read further. So the most important things, the four most important things, first, yes, you have to have a picture. And no, you don't have to like it. Nobody likes their own picture. Get over it. Have a picture. Don't have it be your arm cut off, with your arm at somebody's wedding in a tux, unless you're in the tux business. But have a photo, have it be current. If you meet somebody in person, we'll be doing that again. You want them to be able to recognize you. For me, what I do is anytime I get a new pair of glasses, I take a new headshot. The next thing we already talked about is your headline. So take a look at Fig's headline. Yes, it says her title because she is the CEO of this company, but it says what the company does. Really specifically, it's very niche, but you get it, right? You understand what they do. You may not know what that means because if you're not in the insurance industry, but you get it. Next, that background graphic. Did you know that you can change that? Some people don't even realize that they could change that background graphic, and having that, especially as a business owner, if you just have that sort of gray-green thing that they give you, no, use it. It's your personal billboard. You can put your company logo, you can put photos that make sense. And it's super easy. Okay, so I started as a graphic designer back in the day. And I hate to put any graphic designers out of work. First of all, you can hire a graphic designer, especially if you're having other work, branding work done for your business. But if you're just starting out and you can't afford that, Canva, canva.com, super easy tool, free version. You can make a graphic that looks really good. And when you click on the little camera, you can't see it here, but if you were on your own profile, there'd be a little camera up here. When you click on that, it gives you the specifications for the size of the graphic. So use that space. Yes, who loves Canva? So I have the full Adobe suite, but I use Canva. It's just so easy. So this background graphic, do think of it like your billboard. You can change it as often as you want. I know some people who are speakers who change it based on their upcoming events. So they're going to be speaking at the XYZ conference. They put that up there. So use that space, use all the real estate that LinkedIn provides. And the next thing, we talked about this already, where the 4 is, you can see that there is a company page. Now, if you click on it, it's kind of weird. They changed it. It used to be that if you clicked on that company name, it would take you to the company page. Now it takes you down onto the profile under the experience section to where Fig talks about what she does. And then you have to click on the logo a second time to get to the company page, but that's okay. So these 4 things are the most important things on your profile because they're the top of the fold. The profile, I give entire presentations on profiles, and I didn't want to spend the whole day today doing that. So I have a little gift for you. If you take out your phones and open up the camera and put it over that QR code, it will bring you to, and plus I can send a link and we can send it afterwards if you don't want to do it now, but it will take you to an article I wrote and that I keep current about 10 tips. I may have changed it. It might be 12 tips now. I don't know. 10 tips for maximizing your profile, because they keep changing things, adding features. In fact, do I have the bell feature on there? So there's something I'll be showing you later that I may need to add to that. And thank you for reminding me. I'm going to write it down right now. So your profile, yes, start with the things that we talked about, but do move on to all the other parts. Use all the real estate that they give you to share what you're all about, to share your business, to share your knowledge. Ah, it worked, Leslie. Great. Yeah, QR codes are pretty cool now that people know what they are. I didn't know what they were in the past. So moving on from the profile, let's talk about content. People always want to talk about content. So we will. Where to start? That's the biggest question I get. I don't know. I have nothing to say. What do I say? First of all, you do. You have knowledge that other people don't. You don't always give yourself the credit for it, but you wouldn't have a business or be thinking of starting a business if you didn't have something, either knowledge or products to promote. Great way to start, answer the top questions you get. So that's why I love questions. I'm gonna all the questions that you asked me today, those can become content, because you might ask a question I didn't even think of before. So that's content, answering questions that your prospects and your clients and your customers ask you. I had actually someone I was working with one-to-one yesterday. He really feels like he doesn't have information to share. It's like he thinks his business is boring. It's not. Answer. So he did help a client recently, and he was going to share a story about that. And what we did was we turned it into an educational thing. So yes, his exact clients know what he does, but his network who can refer him, his network on LinkedIn, may not understand. So he started with a story of, this is the situation, this is what happened, and this is why I was working with this client that led to this result. So answer those questions. Now, the other thing you can think about for content is your origin story. So why did you start your business? People think about what you like to read when you're on any social media. What will get your attention? What will stop you? So that's the content type of content of sharing. But what about the formats? There are so many formats on LinkedIn. You can write a text post. You can do a video. You can do a picture with some text. You can do a PDF that people can click through. You can do a poll. How many of you, okay, for those of you that are on there often, I'm really sick of polls, but okay, LinkedIn likes them. I'm sick of polls. Polls, videos. Now there are also, if you have access to them, LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn Audio, and newsletters. So there are a huge number of ways to share your knowledge and experience. Just get started. Don't worry about it. Ultimately, yes, it's good to have a mix of types of content because a subset, some of your network will be the kind of person that only likes videos. Some will like to read, some will like to see a picture, but don't let fear of doing a different kind of content stop you from doing it. If you're better writing, so start by writing, keep writing. If you like to do videos and you're much better talking, then do videos. And it's perfectly okay to have, it used to be you'd need a very produced video. Now, your phone is absolutely fine because people are much more comfortable. It's like having a real conversation with somebody. You don't want it shaking around and bad sound outside or something like that, but your phone is absolutely fine for taking the video. Now, I know we'll probably have a lot of questions about content, so we can take those in a little bit, but I just wanted to get you thinking about sharing your knowledge because that's one of the ways that you stay in front of your network. And as a business owner, you want to stay in front of your network because you want them to refer you to work with you, to know what you're all about. In the chat, is there anybody that already shares content besides maybe Steve, Sue, and Lynn? Is there anybody who shares content on LinkedIn? Let me know in the chat if you already do. Okay, Tom does. Susan, yes, no. Okay, some do, some don't. It's kind of like there are some people who, just like people that are uncomfortable commenting, there are people that are a little apprehensive about starting to share content. Who's going to see it? What if somebody says something negative? First of all, people are so much less likely to say something negative on LinkedIn because it's their career at stake. So that's why you can be comfortable getting started there where you might be less comfortable on another platform. And Sue says she wants to start taking advantage of different content types. Yeah, and so the algorithm's always changing and LinkedIn doesn't tell us. So all of the advice I'm giving you is based on observation and it could change tomorrow, or I could be in some test group. So it's good to try the different types and see the reactions that you get. Because there was a point where video, if it wasn't video, felt like nobody was seeing it. Now it's a real mix. And there's something that a friend of mine calls a scroll stopper. So more than 50% of the visits to a LinkedIn are now on mobile. So a scroll stopper is when you're scrolling along and something captures your attention, so you stop. So think about the things, one, that capture your attention. A photo might capture your attention, a video might capture your attention. And if it takes up space. So if you're doing a text post, write a full post. Don't just regurgitate something that someone else has done. Oh, speaking of which, okay. LinkedIn promises, LinkedIn says that if you share, say an article you read in the New York Times this morning with a comment, please always with a comment about why you're sharing it, because otherwise you're adding to noise, that it will show that to just as many people as any other type of content. But everyone in my world who does what I do, we are convinced that that type of post, a post with a link off the platform, will not get shown to as many people. Do I still do them? Of course, but I won't allow that to be the only type of post I do. So a lot of people will say, well, I want people to go see my website. That's like, remember I said, if we were in person. So if we were in person and we were having a conversation, you were talking about what you did, I was talking about what I did, and you said to me, oh, we have to go to my office to continue this conversation. I would think you were nuts. If you're already having a conversation, allow the conversation to be where the conversation is. So yes, you do want people to perhaps learn more about what you do and eventually go to your website or speak to you in a different way. But if someone's engaging with you on LinkedIn, allow them to engage with you on LinkedIn. And let's see, I got a question. Can content be sharing a post or stories, maybe opinions or praise of others on LinkedIn? Yes, very good suggestion. So they actually have a feature. When you click to start a post, one of the options is kudos. And you can actually, so if there's somebody who did something wonderful or works with you, you can give them, and you can do it in just a regular post too, but you can say thank you. For instance, if I wanted to, after today, I could do a post and say, thank you, Ronnie, for bringing me in to speak this morning. It was so great to meet everybody. But then what I would do, I would add some information of value, because I don't want it to just be noisy and me saying thank you necessarily, or me promoting something that I did. So I might say, here are 2 questions that people asked and the answers that I gave. But yes, absolutely, thanking somebody or praising others is a wonderful thing to do. One thing to be aware of though, so there's this tradition on Twitter that some people brought over to LinkedIn called Follow Friday. And so every Friday, they were picking somebody in their network to highlight and show to the world. And I started doing it and people loved it. They said, oh, that's so great. Thank you so much. So I would do a post saying, follow Friday. Here's somebody I think you should know. This is what they do, et cetera, et cetera. And then a friend of mine who I highlighted reached out and said, you know, Beth, I wish you wouldn't have done that, because I don't feel like my profile is where it should be. And I don't have time for the attention right now. I'm really busy. So in some cases, use your common sense. In some cases, I will ask somebody first if it's okay to profile them. In other cases, if they're active on LinkedIn, I don't worry about it so much. If they're less active, then I kind of wonder, do they want the attention? That was a great question. Another question is, some people repost other people's content. So if you mean sharing their content, so for instance, if I did a post on LinkedIn and you shared it, first of all, for some reason, not many people would see that. They don't seem to share shares with your network, but you still could do it, but always add the reason why you're sharing it. You don't want to just add to noise. You don't want the same 10 people sharing the same article without a reason. So include your thoughts. You know, I'm sharing this because I thought it was interesting that, or some kind of additional information about why you're sharing that post. But yeah, it's worth trying all the types of content, because again, the algorithm will show it to different sets of your network, and different people like different things. So it's worth doing. But again, start with what you're comfortable with, because that will get you to do it. You know, I know people who their video just scares them. So if I said do a video, they would never share content. Start with what works for you. I love these questions. Now I will tell you about so LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn Audio, and newsletters. There is a different form of profile called creator mode. It's a little button on your profile where there's the section that's only for you. It'll say something like creator mode on or off. Creator mode is kind of new, less than a year old, and it changes your profile in a couple ways. First, it forces you to have the follow button be default, not the connect button when somebody comes to your profile. It moves your about section down and moves your content up, and excuse me, gives you 5 hashtags that you say you talk about. It also immediately gives you access to LinkedIn Live and newsletters. So LinkedIn Live is broadcasting live on LinkedIn, the way you've probably seen Facebook Live. And newsletters are articles, but that people can subscribe to, so that when you write your next newsletter, anybody who has subscribed will get a notification that you've done it. And those are wonderful features if you're going to use them. The way to decide whether you want creator mode, I think of it as, if you're trying to build a network, keep it in the regular mode. Don't do creator mode. If you're trying to build an audience, this is different than building a network. This is people who follow your content and see what you're all about. Then you might want to consider it, especially for those additional features. For most people, if you have a business, especially if you're just starting out, do not put on creator mode. LinkedIn Audio, which I will tell you about, brand new feature. It's in beta. I am a beta tester. It's audio conversations that happen on LinkedIn. They're really fun. I'm experimenting with doing all different types. If you've heard of Clubhouse, it's like Clubhouse, but on LinkedIn. It's like Twitter Spaces, but on LinkedIn. And only people who are beta testing can host one, but anyone can join one. So if you see a conversation promoted about a topic that interests you, you can be part of that conversation. And that's a really great thing to do, just to be aware of or be part of the conversation with other people who have similar interests. Last week, my topic was your boring professional branding. And I had a copywriter and a photographer, and people came up and we had a conversation. My next one is tomorrow, I think, at 1:30, with a woman who's a business coach for creative professionals. And we're talking about together, proposals, the idea of, do you do proposals? And if you do, how you do them. Anyway, it's really cool. And a question, can I go back to regular mode if I test creator mode? So yes, you can go back. What we don't know, and I haven't gotten a straight answer on this, is if you go back, will it take away your access to LinkedIn Live and newsletters? I mean, it won't get rid of any that you've done in the past, but will it take what? I don't know. But you can go back and forth if you want to test it. And for you, Sue, I think if you're not using it, to have LinkedIn Live and to have the newsletters, you might want that. And another question on regulatory issues affecting what you can do on LinkedIn. Yes, there are professions. So if somebody's a therapist, if somebody's there, you are potentially limited to what you can do. But in a minute, do I have that in this presentation? No. Okay. So here's a fact or fiction that I didn't put as a slide. There is something you can do that maybe you're not ready to share content, but how can you engage with people? How can you be part of the conversations that are happening? Commenting. So you may not be able to share a post for whatever reason, but you can comment on someone else's post. Maybe somebody's talking about a topic near and dear to your heart. You can comment on that. How about this? You have a prospect. So somebody that seems like they might be an ideal client for you. If they're active on LinkedIn, if they share posts and you want to get to know them, you can comment on one of their posts. They now have seen your name, your headline, because it comes up when you comment. And what about this? This is really sneaky. What if you ask them a question, an educated question based on what they shared? So if I did a post about, if I had this graphic up and I did a post about content, you could say to me, oh, that's really interesting, and ask the question that you asked in the chat. What would I do if somebody asked me a question? I would respond. You've just started a conversation with somebody that wouldn't take your call because they don't know who you are. So it's an amazing way to get started, is actually by commenting on other people's content. And something that I don't have a slide of also, there's a new feature I think it's rolled out completely. You won't see it on your own profile, but you'll see it on other people's, kind of on the top right under the graphic to the right of their name. There'll be a little bell. And because LinkedIn is like this, they don't tell you what that's for. And people are afraid to click. If you click on the bell, it says you'll get notified anytime they post. Now, they've admitted that it's not really anytime they post. There's some algorithm, but you'll get notified. So if there are people, good referrers for you, for instance, or people that you want to keep, excuse me, be certain to see their content, click on that bell and you'll get notified so you can keep track of what they're up to. Excuse me. So as an example, before I move on, any other questions on content? And we'll get to questions a little later, but any other content questions?
Yes, Sue. I'm sorry, Beth.
Yes.
Sue Glenn has a really great question. She wants to know, can you go back to regular mode easily if she decides to test out creator mode?
Yeah, I think I answered that, but yes, she can. Technically, it's very easy to go back. What we don't know is, will she lose the access to the features that she got from being in creator mode? I'm not sure. And there is that follow button thing. So it can be frustrating to have the follow button on if what you're trying to do is also build a network. But I say, if you make it easy for people to connect with you, maybe you have your email in your about section. I do. I think I do still. So if make it easy for people to connect with you and reach out to you. Also, there's a setting on your profile under settings that you can allow anyone on the platform to send you a message. So that way, even if they're following you, they can send you a message and you can get it. And here's a good question. Can you delete posts or content if you decide you no longer want to share something? Yes, you can edit and you can delete. So typo, oops, yes, you can fix it. Or if you had something that you think better of later, or it doesn't apply anymore. But also know that content that's old, nobody's going to see it because there's so much new content. But yes, you can delete, you can edit. Excellent question. And a question, how does search work, name or business type? I'm new to this. So searching, you can do both. You can search all different things. And that's what the power of the search is, very strong. That's sort of more an advanced feature, so I'm not going into that today, but it's very literal though. So say like you're searching for real estate attorneys. I wouldn't necessarily put that all in the search, because it's going to look for each word separately, even if you put the quotes and do a Boolean search, which is an advanced technique. So I would probably start with attorney, and then there's something called all filters, and you can pick real estate as the industry. So yes, the search is very, very powerful. All right. Good thing this wasn't in person, because I'm getting over COVID. I thought I missed it.
Really? Oh.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I was a little worried until yesterday that I was going to have to call you. Wow. I'm better. I just have a little bit of a cough. So I give a webinar called 9 LinkedIn Landmines, things to avoid doing that can hurt your reputation, because this is your reputation. This is your business. So I picked 3 of my favorites that I'm going to share with you. 1, don't do this. The connect and pitch. How many of you, and not everybody's on camera, I was going to say raise your hands, but I'm sure this has happened to many of you. Somebody sends you a connection invite. You don't know them, but you think, why not? You connect with them. The next thing that happens is you get an email with a pitch for their product. People hate it. Don't do it. Again, it's like being in person. If I just met you, or if this was in person, and you started trying to sell me something, no. In fact, I once went to a meeting, a networking type meeting, and it was very crowded, so I didn't get to actually meet everybody, but we passed our cards around. The next week, I got a call from the assistant of the financial planner wanting to know if I wanted to set up a meeting to discuss my finances. I hadn't even met this guy. So no, you have to take your time. It's relationship building. Mm-hmm. Yes. And Lynn says that earns them immediate disconnect. I agree. It's bad behavior. It really is. Sometimes I get a little snarky and I try to pitch them back, but I know it's not going to do anything. Okay. The next, indiscriminate tagging. So you can tag or mention people in a post, and what will happen is they'll get notified. So likely they'll write back or something like that. So for instance, when they were promoting this event, they tagged me and I was able to see that. So I saw that post and engaged with that post, shared that post, etc. But I went to an event about 3 years ago now at LinkedIn. It's called the Groups Listening Tour. They asked us all these great questions about LinkedIn groups and then did nothing with the information, but that's an aside. And I met somebody there. He started tagging me in every single post that he did. It could have been, I just learned how to change a tire and he was tagging me. Well, it got annoying. When you tag somebody, it should be for a real reason. Either you're thanking them for something, they're speaking at an event and you want to let them know that you're promoting it, or you just had a conversation about this thing. Because by tagging somebody, you're asking for them to do something. You're asking for them to use their social capital, if you will, to engage with this content. If you want to make sure somebody sees something, because there's a misconception that when you share a post, everyone in your network sees it. No, there's some algorithm. So a certain percent of the people will see it in their feed. If you really want to make sure somebody sees something because it's important, then send it to them as a direct message, send it to them as an email, a text, or some other thing. But tagging, it's a wonderful feature, but use it appropriately. And back to the other one, Tom says, sometimes to connect, I give a few words on their company and how ours are similar. Yeah, that's different. That's what you might say in person. A good question. How does connect and pitch differ from a LinkedIn ad campaign? So when somebody sees an ad or gets an email that someone pays for, it says that's what it is. It says, this is an ad. And people can choose to engage with it or not. But when you connect with somebody and immediately, it just annoys people. Think about if it happens to you. All right. So indiscriminate tagging, not a good thing to do, but tagging is a powerful feature. Oh, and if you want to know how to do it, as you're typing your message, you type the @, and then, because this is the quirkiest feature LinkedIn has, start typing the person's name slowly. It's kind of like you have to let LinkedIn realize you're trying to tag somebody. And what will happen is people's names will pop up underneath, and then you click on the person's name. And then when you send that post out, that becomes a live link and they get notified. And if someone's reading the post, they can click on that person's name and go to their profile. So again, it's the @ and start typing their name in your post. And finally, third one I like to share, invitations with no note. We are busy people. It's making somebody do work. If you send them an invitation without a note, they have to figure out, first of all, who is this person? Do I know them? Do I want to connect with them? Make it easy. Say where you met. Say why you want to connect. Everybody has to come up with their own philosophy for both connecting and sending connection invites. Mine was initially, I had to either really know the person or met them at a live event. Remember live events? Or had a substantial conversation on social media. So I felt like I knew them a little bit. But then what would happen is I'd go to an event, a trade show or some kind of conference, and I'd meet somebody, we'd have a great conversation, we'd connect. If we'd ever had a conversation after that, it wasn't a very valuable connection. But I don't typically go back and disconnect unless somebody's had bad behavior, because yes, I also want people to see my content and know who I am. But now what I look at is I quickly go through the connection invites. Some are immediate guesses. Maybe I know the person. Maybe they sent a note that makes me realize why we should connect. There's some immediate no's, right? And then there are the in-betweens. And the in-betweens, that makes me do the work. So if there's an in-between, they're not likely to get connected with unless I have an hour on a Saturday to go through all of those. So Tom says, sometimes LinkedIn has names pop up on my profile of fellow colleagues or past employers. Yes, they do that. And Sue asks, is it a good idea to weed out your connections from time to time? I think that depends on how many you have. There is actually a connection limit. I forget what the number is, some big number. So if you're not worried about that, I don't tend to do that just because I have other things to do. But if someone has bad behavior, if they do the connect and pitch, I'll disconnect, absolutely. But you could, but I tend not to. Maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know. So those are 3 things not to do. There are more, but just again, if you're wondering, think about if you were in person, would you say that thing? Would you do that thing in person? And now I'm going to answer a question that I get all the time before you ask it. Free versus premium. Do you need to pay LinkedIn? First of all, most of you, no. The features that you get are not, if you're not using it actively, it's kind of like a gym membership, right? If you're not using the features all the time or being stopped from doing things, you don't need to pay them. These are the differences. And one of the things I wanted to let you know about, so lynda.com, which is called LinkedIn Learning, it's a tool that LinkedIn bought a number of years ago. It's video tutorials, and they're wonderful. It's great stuff. Most people can get it for free through their library. Check your library website. Most libraries have access to this for free. All right, fact or fiction? You shouldn't ask people to write you a recommendation on LinkedIn. What do you think? Put it in the chat. I should have the Jeopardy music. Yes, it's okay to ask. Okay, what else? What do you think? Okay to ask for a recommendation? Not okay. It depends. Okay. Ask, yes, if they know you well. I think it should be okay. Yeah, so my theory is the best time to ask is when they're thanking you for something because they want to do something nice for you. They're happy with what your service or product that you provided. So that is a great time to ask. And yes, it's absolutely fine to ask people. It's also, on the flip side, a wonderful thing to do. Write somebody a recommendation without them asking. How wonderful is that? Somebody that you worked with, somebody, a colleague, anybody that you know and know that they do a really good job at what they do. Now, and we have a question. I'd like to develop a list of providers who can help my clients in the future. Is LinkedIn a good place to garner these potential sources? Yes. And that's a great reason to reach out to somebody because you're being honest. You're saying, I'm trying to develop a list of resources for my clients. I'd love to. I think you might be one. I'd like to learn more about you. So absolutely. And so Carol, you asked, isn't that true for endorsements? Meaning that you can give somebody an endorsement without them asking? Yes, and they can give you an endorsement. Unless you're in certain types of financial services where you have to turn that off. You're not allowed to give or get endorsements. But yes, to me, endorsements are kind of like a thank you light, right? The recommendations, even better. But what I like to do, the way I use endorsements is because I thought it was a silly feature, honestly, when they added it. But if somebody gives me a referral or somebody, we had a speaker at National Speakers Association who gave a huge amount of value. I went and endorsed him for his skills. Excuse me. So, good topic. All right, now I'd like to, before we go to questions, this is one of my favorite things. I call it the dog walking trick. You're out walking your dog, someone else is walking your dog. The dogs are sniffing each other. So you get to talking and you realize, wow, this person is somebody who could help me with my business. They'd be a great referral partner, or they'd be a great client, or they'd be great whatever. I need to know them. But you're walking your dog, you know, business cards with you. In fact, I don't know where my business cards are since COVID. I have to find them maybe. But what do we have with us pretty much all the time? So take out your phone. And this works both with the camera and the LinkedIn app. So if you have the LinkedIn app, open the app. And I'm going to do it with you just to make sure they haven't changed anything, because sometimes they do. And click in the search box on the top of the homepage. If you don't have the LinkedIn app, open your camera. Inside the search box, there's this funny little, I should like enlarge that. There's a funny little symbol that's 3 gray boxes and a little thing. Click on that and you'll notice that your QR code will come up. Next to that, it says scan. So if you're in person with somebody, one person picks the code, the other person picks scan, and the one person scans the other person's code. But I will make it easy for you. Put your camera over my code on the screen and see what happens. One thing I will say, I'm convinced that the desktop people and mobile people at LinkedIn aren't allowed to talk to each other. It's different on mobile and on desktop. Sometimes on desktop, if you click on connect, it lets you write the message, et cetera, et cetera. On mobile, not so much. Sometimes you have to click on the more or the 3 dots and pick personalize invite. Don't know why. That's just LinkedIn. Speaking of QR codes, if I don't send out email all that often, but sometimes I do to let you know about free talks or changes in LinkedIn. If you're interested in getting on my mailing list, you can scan this code. QR codes are fun, aren't they?